Shalom, family. Shalom. I hope everybody is doing well. Yeah, I was muted. Yes, I was. Well, y'all, look like we won't have another boring week. This one won't disappoint either. Wow. Okay. I hope everybody is doing well. Shalom, family. Shalom. Well, I said to you all before, this separation that we're in is permanent. It's permanent. And as long as everybody's out there tearing everything up, you've got zero chance of getting businesses up and running, especially in the big cities. And we know a lot of multi-million-dollar corporations are in those cities. Yeah, they're going to keep doing it because there's no consequences. Israel Afterborn Male 4444. Yeah, they're going to keep doing it because there's no consequences. And see, that's why people are protesting in the street. They want change. They're not going out there to have a conversation about racism. That's a waste of time. You need policies in place. Without that, it's counterproductive. They don't want to do anything beyond talking because, see, it's the legal system and the government. That's how they've been able to keep themselves at the top. Okay, and without those two things, the legal system and the government, they're like everybody else. So those are the two things that got to be toppled. And then that's really it. All right, y'all. We're going to go ahead and get started. I don't know if many of you heard the latest story. Trump is telling the governors to use force on the crowds. I guess he must forgot about the Constitution, which says that people got the right to assemble and protest. People are allowed to go out in the streets and protest. Well, he wants them to use force on the crowds and dominate the crowd with force. Now, it's amazing how he's telling them to do those things, but when the crowd came up to the White House, he ran into a bunker. Why didn't he dominate and use force? Okay. He took his little Karen ass down in the bunker. All right, y'all, let me go ahead and share my screen, and then we shall get started. All right. All right. Give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Yeah, unfortunately, the family is going to have Al Sharpton officiating the funeral. Oh, well. And by the way, George Floyd's funeral is this coming Saturday. So I don't know, I don't know anything beyond that of what kind of funeral they're planning to have for him. Didn't get that far into detail, unfortunately, with the article that I read. All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you for giving me the ones. Okay, let's get started with this video. This is from CNN. An agitated Trump encourages governors to use aggressive tactics on protesters. So he's telling them to go out there and use force on the protesters. And I tell you what, if he uses force on these protesters and people get killed, Trump can say goodbye to his they'll run him out of office before the week is out.
This is a really remarkable call, and CNN has obtained the audio. It's a call the president just had with governors, with law enforcement officials, with national security officials. And he was on this call, and he chose to start it by lashing out at these governors, telling them that most of them have been weak and that they need to start cracking down on the protesters who are turning violent in the streets of their cities. He says it is making the United States the laughingstock of the world. Listen to this really remarkable audio that CNN has obtained.
What happened in the state of Minnesota, they were a laughingstock all over the world. They took over the police department. The police were running down the street, sirens blazing, the rest of them running. It was on camera. And then they wiped out, you probably have to build a new one, but I've never seen anything like it, and the whole world was laughing. 3 days later, I spoke to the governor. The governor is, I think, on the call, and he's the next one died. And all of a sudden, and I said, you got to use the National Guard to take numbers. They did it first, and they did. And I'll tell you that, I don't know what it was. Governor, it was the third night, fourth night. Those guys walked through that stuff like it was butter. They walked right through, and you haven't had any problems since. I mean, they don't. They're not going to go there now. They'll go to some other place. But once you called out and you dominated, you took the worst place, and you made it. They didn't even cover it last night because there was so little action. Because you dominated. You dominated. Now, what happened to New York, I have to tell you, I live in Manhattan. What's going on in Manhattan, I have no idea. New York's finest, they got to be allowed maybe to do their job. I don't know what's happening in Manhattan, but it's terrible. And because it's New York, because it's Manhattan, it gets a lot of press. So they really spend a lot of time on it. But New York has got to have to toughen up. And we'll send you National Guard if you want. You have the largest police force in the country, 40,000 people, I understand. But what's going on in New York is terrible. It's terrible. All the places. What went on last night in Los Angeles with the stores and the storefronts is terrible. No domination. You have to dominate. Yeah, go ahead, Phil. That's what makes sense.
And he says there at the end, John, that they have to dominate and start imprisoning some of these protesters who are turning violent. He said, otherwise they are going to look like jerks. We should also note that the governor of Maine told the president that they were uncomfortable because he is scheduled to visit the state on Friday because of the security concerns. And the president said that because the governor of Maine was trying to convince him not to come, that now he was coming for sure.
All right. Okay. All right. So Trump is telling these people to use force on protesters. Now, we know American citizens have always, throughout the history, gone out and protest. I guess maybe he think we are in the middle of China somewhere, and he can pull a Tiananmen Square on the American citizens. And I'm telling you, Trump thought he had to hide in a bunker yesterday. Try to pull that one with some National Guards, and I promise you, he going to be living for the rest of his life down in that bunker. Okay? Plain and simple. So that's his new message to the governors, to use force on the crowds. Dominate the crowds, use force on them. Sounds familiar, don't it? I guess I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked, but it does look kind of hypocritical because the crowds went up to the White House and I didn't see him use force. He got taken into a bunker to go somewhere and hide. So let me pull up this next one. Show you the screen here. Let's see here. Go back to this. Okay. right, let me go ahead and share my screen with you again. All right. Some of you might have heard that Trump was taken into a bunker because of the protest that was going on outside of the White House. Okay, so this came out June 1st, 2020 on CNBC. Trump took shelter in a White House bunker as protests rage. Now, really, the only time a president is supposed to go down in the bunker is if there's a terrorist attack or a war going on in the country, then the president is taken down into the bunker. But the Secret Service agents rushed Trump into the White House bunker on Friday night as hundreds of protesters gathered outside of the executive mansion, some of them throwing rocks and tugging at police barricades. So Trump spent some time down in the bunker, which is designated for emergencies like terrorist attacks, according to a Republican close to the White House who was not authorized to publicly discuss private matters and spoke on the condition, of course, they want to be anonymous as always. The account was confirmed by an administration official who also on condition of, everybody wants to be anonymous, y'all. The abrupt decision by the agents underscore the rattled mood inside the White House, where the chants from protesters in Lafayette Park could be heard all weekend, and Secret Service agents and law enforcement officers struggled to contain the crowds. Friday's protests were triggered by the death of George Floyd, a Black man who died after he was pinned at the neck by a white police officer. Actually, it was 4, so don't try to act like it was just one officer. The demonstrations in Washington turned violent and appeared to catch officers by surprise. They sparked one of the highest alerts on the White House complex since the 9/11 attacks in 2001. The White House does not comment on security protocols and decisions, said a White House spokesman, Judd Deere. The Secret Service says it does not discuss the means and methods of its protective operations. The president's move to the bunker was the first reported by the New York Times. The president and his family have been shaken by the size and venom of the crowds, according to the Republican. It was not immediately clear if the First Lady Melania and the couple's 14-year-old son, Barron, joined the president in the bunker. Secret Service protocol would have called for all of those under the agency protection to be in the underground shelter. Trump has told his advisor he worries about his safety, while both privately and publicly praising the work of the Secret Service. So Mr. President is, I guess he's feeling some fear. He's shaken. Trump traveled to Florida on Saturday to view the first named space launch from the U.S. in nearly a decade. He returned to the White House under, so when he returned to the White House, they're claiming it was under siege by protesters. Some violent, gathered just a few hundred yards away through much of the night. And ladies and gentlemen, they have been protesting both during the day and at night. Now, some of you might know that, some of you may not. The protest actually goes on around the clock. You have a bunch of people that are out there in daytime hours protesting, but probably the more ramped up protesting is at night. And that's usually what they broadcast. You may get a glimpse or two of the protests during the day, but not much. They don't really put a lot of emphasis on the one during the day. The one that occurs at night, they really broadcast that one a lot. But he wants the protest to stop. Here's the problem, y'all. People are not working. People are not working. This protest is far different from anyone in the past. You know, before people would protest, but eventually they had to get back to their life. They had to get back to work and so on and so forth, right? Now you got a country full of people that are not working. They have nothing but time as far as being out in the streets and protesting. And when you look at the crowds, there is no way the cops can control that amount of people. It's just no way. They can't. And they're really missing the bigger picture. It's going to be a lot of sick people in this country in the next few days with coronavirus, especially the cops. The cops have, when you look at those cops out there, they have no kind of protection on other than the riot gear. That's it. But thousands of people, they're being exposed to thousands of people every single day and night. There's no way they're not going to get it. And the National Guard already had a big problem with coronavirus. You can look this up yourself. The National Guard and all of the military branches have been struggling with coronavirus. You know, they don't have those barracks set up where you can social distance. You know, they got people in those bunk beds, and the living quarters don't allow you to have a bunch of social distancing. So they are getting very sick. You know, I mean, it's not what you think. And Trump, like I said, if he used force on a crowd that you got in your constitution that says they are allowed to protest, and you go against that, I'm telling you, they will run Trump out of office long before November gets here. I mean, he can make all the threats he wants. He carries that out. He's finished as president. I wouldn't be surprised if Melania and Barron weren't even there. You know, nobody even mentioned them at all. And to be all honest with you, I don't believe she's up at that White House with him all the time either. You know, she moved her parents to Washington, D.C. And I think a lot of times she's with her parents. She's not even at the White House. Thank you, Daniel Jones, for the super sticker. Well, just know one thing, y'all. They just think about this. Over the last few weeks, they have been talking about reopening the country, right? After the death of George Floyd, you notice we hardly hear anything about reopening the country like we did before. Who do you think shut that down? Who do you think shut that down, y'all? Just think about this. Any attempt to try to bring this place back to normal, it will be stopped each and every time. Now, they kept talking about reopening, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, and a man gets killed on the streets. And now we're not hearing anything about this phase and that phase of opening the country, are we? That got shut down real fast. But you can best believe they're going to still try to make attempts. But look at what happened when they made the first attempt to reopen the country. Look at what happens. And see, they don't want to face the fact that this country will never, ever be the same. It will never be the same. Their glory days are now behind them. It's rough roads ahead. See, they had a good old time. For centuries, they had a good time up in here at our expense. But no more glory days for them. Those days are gone. And they think this protest is rough. Man, the judgment on this place is going to be far worse than this protest. Far worse. Oh, yeah, you're right, Christopher Clipper. It is collapsing. We are literally watching a nation collapse right before our eyes. And there is absolutely nothing they can do about it. Nothing. And you see the difference, right? When the protesters went up there 2 weeks ago, they had AK-47s and semi-automatic rifles, and they went up to the state capitol protesting to get the country reopened. And they went up there every day, and they start making threats on killing and harming governors. Did anybody send out the National Guard and talk about using brute force on that crowd? But see, when the faces of the crowd changes, so does the attitude. Now it's okay to harm the crowd. You see, when the crowd start getting darker, then it's okay to harm that crowd and get the National Guard out there and use brute force on them. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen, just that a president had to go into a bunker tells you they don't have control over the situation at all. There's no order in America. But see, America has always ran this way. That's one thing about coronavirus. It has pulled the Band-Aid off of many, many things. You know, but y'all, we're going to see a lot of interesting things coming over these next few months. And I know things are definitely going to get ramped up, especially when hurricanes come through here. I mean, look, I think the last time I looked this morning, we're on the 3rd tropical storm. And technically, hurricane season starts today, June 1st. It got off to an early start this year. Oh, it's going to be interesting. You know, I was looking at even my state. There's a couple of different protests throughout the state that I'm in. And they said right now there are protests in all 50 states. All 50 states. And plus, they're protesting overseas as well over the death of George Floyd. So, you know, they don't like it because, see, in their minds, they're trying to keep the system just as we see it. They don't want it to change. They like the way it is. We, you know, us down at the bottom and them at the top. They don't want that to ever change, but it is changing. It's changing, and we're all watching it change. Right now, they don't have no economy, especially if you compare it to what it was like this time last year. There is no economy in America. And what are we in? Week 11? 11 weeks of no one working? 11 weeks of being at home. That's why everybody's out in the streets now. People have all that pent up frustration being at home. So now they're taking their frustrations out and being in the streets. And they don't care. Thank you, Michaela Huffman. Thank you so much. The Most High said 400 years and he meant 400. You're absolutely right. That's why I'm saying, they're going to make multiple attempts to get everything back to normal, and all of their attempts are going to fail. So as you can see, they made the first attempt and then the protests broke out. Attempt number 1 has failed. It has failed. It's probably because I think Mar-a-Lago is closed. That's why nobody is there. Y'all, we will definitely do this again, and I will keep you up to date to the best of my ability. But I say that is something for, the White House to get so shaken that they take a president into a bunker over protesting. And see, it's really their fault. All they got to do is make some effort to do something about the police killings in the country. But see, they don't want to do it, ladies and gentlemen. They don't want to do it because this is how they have been able to stay at the top. So if they do something about it, they feel like they're losing some power, which they've already lost. We already know they've already lost their power. They already have. Anytime a virus got you hosed up in a home, you've already been defeated. So they don't want to change the system because then they feel vulnerable if it changes. But they don't realize this rule with an iron fist, it's played out. And people are so tired, they're now willing to fight you even with your iron fist. Thank you, Aura Lee, I guess. Trump attacking governors for not getting their states under control. Well, I mean, if that's the case, how come Trump didn't get things under control when he got moved into the bunker? How come he didn't get it under control? I mean, there's a lot of tough talk from somebody that ran into a bunker. Well, he got all upset on Twitter because they flagged him, Sean West. But the bottom line is none of us can go out there and make terroristic threats or any type of violent tweet like he did. He got what he deserved. I agree with Twitter for doing that to him. You went out there perpetuating violence. No, Israel after born male 4444, their time is up. That's why he's not allowing them to do anything. Just look at what's going on. These folks are desperate to get the country back up and running. And ever since everybody got sent home, they haven't been able to do it. Okay? They already lost control. I mean, if they had full control, they would have this place up and running and everybody would be out of their homes going to work. You don't see that, right? And kids would be going back to school and all that stuff would be happening. But it's not happening because they don't have control. See, their cops are now in a desperate state. If you notice, they are on the attack. As soon as we step back in the streets, they automatically running to attack us because they're trying to keep that fear, but it's real difficult to keep that fear when you have zero control over what's going on. I mean, look, they used the death of George Floyd to keep fear. That's all that is, to keep fear in us. But you see how badly it backfired. That one act of killing a man is now tearing down your entire country. Your cities are being destroyed now because of that one act. But don't let them try to change the conversation to looting. The only reason why they want to jump on looting, y'all, is because they have zero answer for what has happened. They know they can't answer it, so they'll jump to something like looting. And who the hell cares about looting? So what? So, I mean, what's more important is a human life. See, these folks, they value property and all kinds of junk over human life. That's why they're an abomination, because that's what they think, oh, you destroyed a building. Well, buildings can be rebuilt. Items can be replaced. A life can't be replaced. There is nothing those looters are taking that can't be replaced. But you can't replace George Floyd. You cannot replace him. It's a big difference. But you see, they have never learned to value humans. They have always, from the jump, it's always been about money and having things, and none of that matters in the climate of coronavirus. Coronavirus don't care if you're the richest man or the poorest one. Everybody can be impacted by it. It doesn't matter. When it comes down to the virus, we're all on an equal playing field. Just like with unemployment right now, we weren't on an equal playing field before. We're sure on one now when it comes down to unemployment. Well, yeah, the very thing that the country was built on is going to be the thing to destroy the country, and that's racism. And you see what's going on. Thank you, PDG, for the super sticker. You see what's going on, right? So the very thing that they built a nation on is going to be the thing that tear the nation down. Right. They didn't they murder and loot a nation in order to get it? That's what that's what pisses me off more than anything. Your cops are violent on these streets. They are violent. But then when it comes down to protesting, you want to tell everybody to be peaceful. The reason why people aren't being peaceful is because it's ineffective. And I had to laugh because one of the, I think it was one of the mayors, told their people to do a silent protest. And I laughed. I said, no, that's just another way of saying shut up. It's another way of saying shut up. Who the hell would notice a silent protest? That is so dumb. If that's the case, why don't you tell your cops to do some silent policing on the street? Tell them to be a silent police. And then we'll do some silent protesting. What kind of garbage is that? And you notice the only time they pay the media and people pay attention is when a building is destroyed. But if you're out there protesting, they don't even pay attention to you. But as soon as something get looted or destroyed, all of a sudden, that's the thing that catches their attention. You can't get their attention any other way. Right. The protest is supposed to bring change. How are you going to bring change if everybody is doing a silent protest, which is stupid? Like I said, that silent protest is just code word for you to shut up. They want you to shut up. All right, everybody. I'm not going to keep you any longer. I just wanted you to see those stories that recently came out. Trump telling the governors to use force on the crowd and how they had to run him down to a bunker because of the protest that broke out there in DC. So everybody, let's see who this is. Adrian Tate, thank you so much for the super sticker. So everybody, please enjoy the rest of your day. And we'll definitely do this a few more times this week as the stories come out. May the Most High keep each and every one of you safe in all four corners of the earth. May he meet all of your needs during this time that this earth is in judgment, and keep you safe and sheltered. Peace, family.